I want to thank you, Marcus, for joining us on our Chalk Talk video. And this will be broken down into 4 quarters since we are in the sports and entertainment industry. The first quarter is going to be the preseason, which will just be another brief introduction along with your name, where you're from, and where you currently work. One aspect of sports do you appreciate the most? And then we'll later go into training days, which is going to be your career path in early high school years, and then going on to your regular season, which will be your current role and where you are now, basically like your day-to-day on that portion. And then we're going to end off with the playoffs, which are going to be your last 2 pieces of advice for the students who are going to watch this. So starting off with the preseason, just going to start off with your name, where you're from, where you work, and then which one aspect of sports do you appreciate the most?
Hello, I am Marcus Bishop. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. Currently, I serve as Assistant Director of Operations and Championships at the America East Conference. One aspect of sports that I really appreciate is the hard work and dedication that athletes put into their craft every day. Working at a conference level, I get to see that manifested in championships, all conference team selections, player of the year selections, and then hearing the stories that motivate our student athletes in success. But in general, the work, the drive, the time, the effort, the blood, the tears, the sweat that athletes put into their craft every day, that is the aspect that I appreciate the most when it comes to sports.
Kim, I really appreciate that, and I want to go into like your early career path, high school, college years. So when you were younger, what did you want to do initially as a career? While you were younger, did you spend more time watching or playing sports? And then what was kind of your first break into getting into the sports world?
You know, when I was younger, I really wanted to be a sports center anchor. I wanted to be the next Stuart Scott or Scott Van Pelt. That was my dream. And then I realized that's probably not very realistic. So I transitioned to wanting to be an attorney at that point when I was younger. But as far as sports in general, I think I made the transition from playing sports from, 6 years old up until sophomore year of high school, where I was playing everything: baseball, basketball, bowling, golf, you name it. I was into it. And then I stopped growing. So at that point, I had to watch. And I enjoyed being a fan as much as I did playing the sport. So that was kind of that transition for me.
And then what was that? What was your first break into the sports industry?
So my first break into the sports industry was actually volunteering for the Fiesta Bowl at a tent outside of the stadium, where you were just a person telling people what direction to go if they're trying to enter the stadium or go to a fan fest. I was just a directional person. But that was my first taste of being at a large event, being able to help out. And it was actually a springboard into being in another committee later on and getting more involved in sports and showing me that this was something that I could do.
So that kind of leads me into fast forwarding to your current role today. If a student were to shout at you, what would they see you doing on your day-to-day? And then what are 2 aspects of your job that are most satisfying? And then one skill that has helped you succeed in your current role?
If a student shadowed me today at my current position, they would see me doing a lot of different things, whether that was ordering awards for our next championship, finding shirts to celebrate our champions, working with our volleyball or cross-country coaches on various discussions they want to have, working with our student-athlete advisory committee on conversations that they want to have in their meetings, planning various meetings for the conference. I'm essentially doing a little bit of everything. So I would say no day is the same for me, and anyone shadowing me would get a different experience every day. As far as 2 aspects of my job that I would consider satisfying, one is just being there when we crown a champion. Like, championships was part of my title. And so being there to hand off a trophy, hand off a medal for a first place finish, hand off a plaque or trophy for player of the year, those are the moments that I find incredibly satisfying, because I get to be a part of rewarding a student athlete for their experience and commemorating that moment in time. The second part that I find very satisfying is just getting to know our student athletes. Working with our student athlete advisory committee gives me the opportunity to get to know our student athletes beyond the athlete side. and know who they are as people, what matters to them, what they care about, what they think is funny. And it keeps me young as well. So definitely two aspects of my job I really enjoy. As far as the skill that's really helped me in working in my position in sports, it's being flexible to do whatever comes my way. I think in sports, you're asked to do a lot of different things, and you just have to be gung ho and go with it. And that's when you learn the most, I think, when you're flexible enough to say, I'm not really sure about this, I'm going to try it, or no, I'm not sure about this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I think that gives you a lot of learning experiences personally and professionally. And then it really surprised you. I would say you surprise yourself sometimes on the outcomes you have there.
Perfect. Well, I love your point about just being flexible. So that's going to actually go into the last section of our Chalk Talk, which is going to be the playoffs. You should be really knowledgeable of this section since you are in the championship portion of your respective industry. But if you could go back and give your high school self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be? And then after this camp, what's the next step for a high school student so they can prepare to eventually be in your shoes one day?
If I could go back to high school and give myself advice, I would say, try that. Try something. Go out there and just make yourself available and get involved in some of the local events and activities that are going on from a sports perspective. I think back to when I was a kid and there were so many different sporting events going on in Birmingham, Alabama, that I probably could have just been someone handing out water to players or handing out flyers to fans. But I wished I would have gone out there and gotten more experience that way. And as someone who's attending this camp, my biggest piece of advice for you is to go out there and do what I didn't do, which is volunteer for what's going on in your hometown, whether that's a golf tournament or a large football annual game or whatever sporting related event is happening in your hometown. Go out there, volunteer yourself, use your free time, and try to get experience as early as you can.
All right, well, Marcus, I want to thank you again for pouring back into the next generation of young sports professionals. I know I greatly appreciate it, and I know they will as well. So thank you again. We have some great content for those watching, and stay tuned for what we have next for Sports Biz.
Thank you.